And I want to take just a few minutes today to talk from a little bit more broad angle on the area of sustainability and corporate responsibility. Talk some about how we as a dairy industry have approached this, I'll call it emerging issue. And then with us at DFA, how we're incorporating much of that into how we operate our organization and working with our member owners across the country. And through that, hopefully, I think you'll see some parallels, especially as I talk from an industry perspective on some of the work that, again, the dairy industry has done and approaching sustainability as an opportunity. And some parallels between some of that work and some of the efforts in the development and establishment and progress of ASHCA. So three things I just want to touch on briefly, just to give a quick overview of DFA and some of what we do and how we do it. Again, talking about the dairy industry and then sustainability within DFA. At a high level, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a dairy cooperative headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri, but with member owners located across the country. We have around 8,000 dairy farmers across the United States that are members of our cooperative, stretching from Maine to California, members in all 48 continental states. The members of DFA produce around 20% of U.S. milk production, so in our world, we're the biggest in what we do. We have, I'll touch on just our strategy in a little bit, but we've got 32 manufacturing sites that manufacture everything from fluid milk to yogurt to cottage cheese to butter and dairy ingredients that are being sold around the world. And we're a commodity business, so it goes up and down from one year to the next, but around $12 to $13 billion in sales. I mentioned our members. Our members are extremely diverse. We represent, we're a microcosm of the dairy industry. So what that means, it means we're owned by largely small businesses. We're owned by family businesses. We're owned by dairy farmers who want nothing else but to have a work environment and a business structure where they can pass that business on to the next generation. And as you can see from the map, they're located all across the United States. In terms of what we do at DFA, that foundation, and this is just a general schematic, but that foundation, milk is the heart of what we do. It's not something that we get patted on the back or said thank you for every day, but picking up that member's milk every day that they worked early in the morning and late at night to produce, marketing that milk to one of our own plants or a customer, and paying that member for the milk that they produced is the core. That's the foundation of just the lifeblood of our organization. But it's also largely a logistics business. And so we, in terms of our strategy, are trying to see, well, how can we differentiate ourselves from others in what we do? And we do that in two distinct ways. One, and on the left-hand side of this, is through member services, so that we can, through Agri-Services Agency, provide insurance services to the members of DFA, whether that's in health, workers' comp, property and casualty, the ability to provide services like safety and loss control through that company and helping our members. Beyond just the aspect of insurance, but how we can help members in the areas of financing and procuring farm supplies for their businesses, in establishing business plans and continuity plans for the next generation, working with them in risk management programs to help take some of the volatility out of their businesses, but how we can play a greater role just with our members on their farms as what they do gets more and more complex from one day to the next. On the other side of that strategy, to be invested in commercial investments, to take, I'd say, the concept of vertical integration, but a little bit different. Typically, when I think of vertical integration, I think of something from the top down. And in this case, taking that dairy farmer equity, starting at the farm, but taking their equity and investment and investing downstream into commercial investments, brands, businesses that can get those farmers closer to the consumer and capture some of that value in the chain back to the producer. And overarching all of that, leadership in our industry, whether that's through participation in organizations like ASHCA, whether that's leadership in dairy promotion or policy or trade associations, or more and more leadership around the world, but seeing that as a key part of what we do. I mentioned we have 32 facilities across the country. Just a quick highlight of where they're at is we have a diverse membership. We have physical investments across the country that largely matches where we have members located at. And the values of our organization. I was part of a strategic planning and strategy development process 6 or 7 years ago. And part of that was to define what should be the values of our organization. We did not only a team on the strategy side, but working with senior management and working with our farmer board of directors on what should be the values of the leading dairy cooperative in the United States. And words like integrity and quality and passion, surrounding that with accountability and innovation and providing leadership and a role in our communities. And then not only having words on a screen to talk about, but really how we can embrace them and live them within our organization. So that's whether it's in programs that we have with our members or in how we're evaluated as employees on an annual basis, that they're driven by and start with the values and how we behave, perform, and to work towards those values. Transitioning a little bit into the story of the U.S. dairy industry from a sustainability perspective. We got started as a dairy industry in 2008, almost the same time that this organization was really getting its feet on the ground and organized and structured. We as a dairy industry started towards sustainability. Some of it was pressure, some of it was an ask, but it came down from the retail level. If you think back to the early part of 2008, people like Walmart and others were starting to talk about carbon footprinting. People like Walmart were wanting to understand the life cycle analysis of various products within their stores, including fluid milk. There were a number of dairy companies in the United States that got asked, what's the carbon footprint of your gallon of milk, or your pound of cheese, or your carton of sour cream? And they said, we don't know. We took that opportunity as an industry, and instead of every single organization in their own silo, in their own methodology, in their own way, trying to determine some of this data, this information, this new realm of work that was still being developed, came together as an industry, and they said, well, let's try from one industry approach to see if we can tackle some of this for the good of all parties in the industry. We started with a sustainability summit, we called it, in Rogers, Arkansas, in June of 2008, with 300 people there from across the industry: dairy farmers, cooperatives, retailers, processors, academia, government, really everyone in the value chain to kind of come together and talk about where there's opportunities, what should be some approaches, and how we should tackle this challenge. Today, as a dairy industry, these are 103 companies and a lot of other individuals that are involved in the work of what we call the Sustainability Council. That has a staff, has a team that focuses and manages this on sustainability within the dairy industry. And again, focusing on having the engagement and the participation of every part of that supply chain, from the co-op to the retailer, and also with the support and engagement of nonprofits and NGOs here in the United States and around the world. This council is a structure that gets together at least 2 or 3 times a year for live face-to-face meetings, for updates on their progress and status, and then is broken down into a number of subcommittees, teams, and committees underneath that. That I'll show some of their work and focus areas in a couple slides. But to be able to take what started out as a broad industry challenge into something that's creating tangible work streams, projects, and ultimately outcomes for the dairy industry. In the dairy industry, we've long talked about stewardship. And at the farm level, stewardship is a word that has a strong connotation, has value to it in terms of preservation and conservation. When we initially started talking about sustainability, especially with farmers, people didn't know what it meant. I remember going home 5 years ago to my wife and saying, they want me to take a role in sustainability. And I'll never forget the first words out of her mouth were, Just remember, I didn't marry a hippie, and I don't plan on being married to one. We didn't know what this area was going to be. We didn't know where it was going to go. We didn't know what it meant. But as we're evolving and really thinking about sustainability as an efficient use of our resources, whether that is the water we use, whether it's the air we breathe, whether it's the land that we grow, whether it's the animals we raise, whether it's the employees we work with and how we train and support them in their jobs, but how we can be the most efficient users of our resource that we can, and how really at the core the aspects of stewardship and sustainability are tied at the hip. Backing up again to some of the work at the industry. We did, the first thing we really had to do was to say, where are we at today? What's our benchmark? We did surveys of around 500 farms. We did surveys of around 70 fluid processing plants across the United States. We used data from around a couple million just milk pickups and deliveries from the farm to the plant to see what is the footprint of a gallon of milk in terms of a carbon perspective. Something that we could better have the facts, have the data to be able to see the allocation of that throughout the value stream, see some of the absolute levels within that distribution, so that then we could build work streams to be able to see where can we make some reductions, some improvements, and continuing the stream of continuous improvement that farmers have historically shown. As with any life cycle analysis, the bulk of the impact, the bulk of the emissions are going to be upstream in the value chain, starting with the animal herself, starting with the feed that she consumes, and starting with the manure that she excretes, and declining from there. But based on that, the industry said we can do better. We have done better from the 1950s to the 1970s, from the 1970s to the 1990s. We can continue to do better, and that we're going to make a goal to continue to reduce that chain by 25% over the coming years. We then took the next step farther. And again, across the bottom of the slide, you see the same kind of focus areas that were in that bar graph in terms of where our footprint is at. And building mitigation products from an industry level that can be supported by processors, that can be engaged with and conducted with farmers, and can have the support of academia and NGOs across the United States. Things like a program called Farm Smart that has a goal of providing farmers with a robust, real-time decision tool to help them in their operations. The promotion and highlighting and rollout of farm energy audits across farms to better leverage resources that are available from NRCS and other state programs towards energy efficiency and promoting those with producers. Things like dairy power, of how we can capture some of the power generation potential from the collection of gas from animal manure in terms of producing electricity or biogas. Things that can help us within our plants, within our fleets to be more efficient. And then systems that can help capture some of those progress to be able to work towards and measure progress towards our goals. Some of these I just mentioned, but so for the sake of time, I'll skip over. But just a little bit, there's more information on all these websites on some of these specific programs that we as an industry are undertaking towards some of these efficiency goals. And then ultimately, how we communicate, how we take that and try to bridge to engagement all the way down at the farm level, to the plant level, developing resources from, again, at an industry level, to be able to communicate with farms, to be able to give farms the resources, the information, so that they themselves can have information, have some of the tools and calculators on calculating some of their footprints, on having tools and resources towards continuous improvement, and again, helping us to measure our progress towards our goals. As I transition then again, and talking about a farmer-owned cooperative, a leader in an industry that has a focus on sustainability. What are we doing? How are we taking some of that and working with our producers, with our facilities, with our customers on some of these aspects of social responsibility and sustainability? These are 4 core areas that we're working in, and I'll touch on as I go through the rest of my remarks. How we work with our producers in terms of the measurement of their practices on their farm, so that we can more proactively communicate, so that we can help, in a business structure that's more and more complex from one year to the next at the farm, how we can communicate with members, best practices, improvement opportunities with them, and also more proactively communicate with consumers, customers, brands who have an interest in what goes on at the farm level. By supporting and working with innovative farm projects that are finding new business models for the generation of electricity, for the production of biogas, for the generation of renewable fertilizers across the United States, by working within our logistics network, and by working within our facilities. At the farm level, the core of what we're doing is a foundation of it is what we call our Gold Standard program. In 2006 into 2007, there was a lot of discussion from the consumer level and the processor level in the dairy industry about added hormones or growth stimulants in milk. At that point in time, in the livestock sectors, cloning was a really hot issue. There was what felt like strong and increasing pressure on farm practices, what people were doing, and a lot of it had a negative connotation. We saw the need at that time to see, how can we maybe not change the conversation, but at least be better prepared to have the fight, to have the conversation, to have the battles. We put together our own farm assessment, farm survey program back in 2007, and at that time, had more than 10,000 of our members across the country on a voluntary nature participate in a survey and assessment that was asking them questions about how they handle their manure, how they care for their animals, how they train their employees. We went back in 2010 and over the next few years did around another 10,000 farm assessments, going deeper into some of the areas of animal care and wellness, deeper in the areas of environmental sustainability. And on Monday, we're going to be training 40 of our field staff to, again, start the process of how we go out and do another round of assessments with our members. And I'm proud. I've got to give our members at the farm level tremendous credit for having buy-in and support for programs that are voluntary, that are different than what other marketing cooperatives are doing, and that it's taken some time for them to have some trust in how that can be of value to them, both in how we market the milk and how they can have operations on their farm. But at the core, and I should have safety and training on this as well, but we get asked more and more questions by consumers, by customers, by brands. And if we went back to when we started programs like this, it was largely things on the left-hand side. How do you care for your animals? What sort of training protocols do you have for your employees? What sort of treatment protocols do you have for your animals? Pasture was a topic that came up frequently. As the whole area of I call it sustainability, local food movements, just in some ways increased engagement by consumers with how and where their food is produced, we're seeing more and more inquiries with things on the right-hand side about how farms are using pesticides and fertilizers, how they're using water, how they're engaged in biodiversity on their operations, what sort of traceability efforts do they have for what they use and how they produce it. These are just examples of at the people that we're dealing with, some of the questions that they're asking. And we always say there's no such thing as a stupid question. At the heart, I believe it, but we sometimes test that almost every day. But we know that we have to be prepared in how we work with our producers to market their milk, to positively tell the stories about what they're doing to be stewards of their land, to be caretakers of their animals, to be responsible employers of their employees, so that we can respond to when we get asked questions about whether it's how much access to pasture that their animals have. If they're getting asked about what percent of their diet supply is traceable back to where it was produced at, or getting asked questions about chemicals, soil, water, biodiversity. I talked about innovative projects. We have members, and we try to help support and engage with our members on projects. This is a member in California who has basically 200 acres in a solar field now that's in a partnership with ultimately, the power goes to Google. That's a pretty fascinating and innovative project. members across the country who are investing in anaerobic digestion systems. That again, when it comes to safety, training, a differentiation of just what happens at the farm, it's a different business model. It's a different skill set to be able to maintain, operate, and work in systems like this. But there are also systems that have very unique opportunities in how they manage nutrients, how they work in their communities on projects like recycling, food waste, and landfill mitigation, and creating business models that have new value-added opportunities for those producers in terms of bringing in food waste, adding it with animal manure, producing electricity, fiber, compost, and nutrients that can be used in their communities and on their land. We at DFA, in terms of investing in sustainable business models, just last week announced we're partnering with some local farms in the state of New York, and will be breaking ground on a facility that will be supplying milk and dairy ingredients to local customers, but will be powered by a digester that's on one of our member farms for nearly all of its electricity needs. Working in the state of Michigan, again, on investing in facilities to be able to take transportation costs out of our system, to have enhanced traceability and some aspects of sustainability in regard to the local milk supply and how we work then with our customers. We're, in many parts of our country, looking at opportunities for natural gas as an alternative to diesel fuel in our truck fleets. And very quickly we'll be moving nearly 100 trucks across our country, which again is only a small percent of our total fleet that we work with, but working to the transition of 100 trucks from diesel fuel to natural gas, and that it will probably save members ultimately, the producers at the farms, over $1 a gallon in terms of fuel cost. Working in areas like water reduction within our facilities, how we reduced waste and packaging within our facilities and our distribution network so that we can get more products on the trucks and in a more efficient distribution network. Our model is we've taken some of the support from the U.S. dairy industry in our engagement there, working within a farmer-owned, farmer-led organization. It really started with setting expectations, having a CEO and board of directors that's engaged. Not a deep team, but having dedicated resources from a staff level that are living and breathing and thinking about sustainability, cost savings, resource conservation on a daily basis. Support from industry associations and targeted goals, whether that's at an industry level for 25% reductions in emissions or more specific goals for our organization, but having goals that we can work towards. Taking then expectations and then working with more local engagement. For us, working within a cross-functional sustainability team across the organization that has representation from our facilities and the different types of facilities that we have, that has input and team members from corporate functions like communications, legal, environmental compliance, that can meet and help to work to build a strategy that can work in all of our different facilities. Facility level teams to really drive down local engagement. And we found that when you talk to and engage a group of just plant employees on how they can have new ideas to do less, to do better with what they have, it truly it has opportunities and increases their engagement just in what they do outside of their core role. And again, moving how we transition from overall corporate goals or industry goals to local goals within those facilities. And then maybe most importantly, sharing success, so that as we're making progress on targets, that we have regular reporting streams of information on the steps we're taking. Sharing accomplishments, and they don't have to be big. If we're found a new way to dispose of coffee grounds at a facility that's making coffee for Starbucks, we're going to communicate that across our organization. If we found a way to reclaim some heat for other uses within our facility, we're going to share that, both the big and the small, as we work towards our pathway and our journey in this. So, in summary, as the clock in front of me winds down here, stewardship is truly, it's part of who we are. As an organization that's owned by farmers, that's owned by small businesses that are multi-generational in nature, and again, want nothing more than to find a pathway to bringing that next generation back. That aspect of stewardship and taking care of what we have, doing more with less as we go forward is core to what we do. We've had the unique support and proactive engagement from our industry that's been a tremendous resource in helping us along the way in our journey. We are, as a company, investing, whether that's in people, systems, and assets, the touch on sustainability so that we can, again, capture some of that value throughout the chain. And maybe most importantly,